Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templar. Today's video, we've got another 2,000 point list for you. We got a lot of requests from folks wanting to know, well, what if I want to run all Primaris? What kind of a list would be great for that? So we've got an all Primaris list for you today. This one is called the Primaris Black Tide. We've got about 60-ish models, 63, I think, in this list. So a pretty hefty chunk of infantry. It is infantry focused. Try to drown the board in durable and good infantry. This list is designed to be as competitive as possible within the parameters of Primaris only. Obviously, Bob and I believe that the most competitive lists are going to combine Firstborn and Primaris, the best units of each. But today we're focusing only on Primaris, so this is what we came up with for a competitive entry for a Primaris only list. So, Bob, why don't you tell us about the list and your decisions behind your choices?
All right. As Alex kind of pointed out, this one's mine. But as he mentioned, that a lot of you are kind of clamoring for this Primaris only. But while that is the case, I did make some design choices with the list. Primarily, no Redemptor Dreadnoughts that you'll see, simply because it was going to make it a little bit too similar to Alex's previous list. And I wanted to make the theme a little bit different for you guys. Now, I certainly could add the Redemptors in there, and it would be easy enough. And I have a version of that list. Maybe we'll put that in
The description, yeah.
the description here for you. But this is how I decided that I would like to do this theme with the Black Tide. So it kind of plays off of a couple of different lists that have been successful in the tournament meta in the last few months. Obviously, we have to worry about Tau and Custodes out there, right? That was another reason why I chose not to go with the Redemptors, because of their ability to kill vehicles with ease. In the case of a Tau, it's just the weight of fire. They have a ton of anti-vehicle weaponry, or just can shoot a ton at vehicles and knock them out pretty quickly. Then you have Custodes with their charges, obviously, and salvo launchers. Basically, those are Dark Lances, which, as we all know from Drakari, are insane against vehicles. So more bodies on the table will kind of play that a little bit, that advantage against them, because they still need to kill a lot more bodies, and you don't really care about D3 plus 3 wounds against a 2 wound model, right?
Yep.
So,
Congratulations, you killed one neophyte. Good job.
yeah, exactly. And most of the lists right now for Custodes are running those salvo launchers. They're not running the Hurricane Bolters, so
Yeah.
that's kind of a good thing. So we're going to play off of the infantry and get as much bodies across the board in ideally 2 waves. So starting off with our HQs, we have Grimaldus, High Marshal, and Primaris Chaplain. Grimaldus is going to be running Litany of Divine Protection with Fires of Devotion. He is our warlord. So the reason for that is I want to actually have some Zerker defense in the list other than our Abhor the Witch stratagem. So because I did not take the Skull of Kikodamus in this list, so I wanted to have a little bit more oomph as far as that goes in your denials, especially with the Eldar coming. And Harlequins, probably more specifically, they will be using Shadow Seers, and this will give you a way to deny some of those powers, because they don't typically have +1 to their Zerker powers. Primaris Chaplain is going to be running Canticle of Hate and the Aurelian Shroud. So right off the bat, turn 1, he's going to be castling up with the rest of your list, which we'll go through in just a second, and knock off that Aurelian Shroud to get that 4+ invul to all of your infantry. Conveniently, all of your infantry. And then As you all know, we have the Tau, who have the ability to really kind of put a wrench in our charge plans. So Canonical Hate is really kind of an important thing there to make sure that you can get into close combat and do what you need to do there. All right, so we're going to move on to the troops. So pretty standard, 10-man, basic. We've talked about this unit quite a bit now. Gene Rot Might is going to be an awesome take here with the Fires of Devotion, getting additional attack. You're going to be running on average with no losses 50 attacks, which is pretty significant. And you're going to do some damage. It's not going to be quite as many as the Tom version of the list with the 14 guys with the maxed out neophytes, but you're still going to be a 10-man unit that's pretty significant for your opponent to deal with. As we've kind of talked about, Kevin Roach's list ran 3 different units of the Crusader squads to really good success. I'm going to make a slight change to that, and my third unit is going to be an intercessor squad with auto bolt rifles. And then they're also going to take 2 Astartes grenade launchers. The reason why I changed this out is I really want to have advanced moving troops for OBSEC, but I want to be able to hold something back, especially on the 6 objective uh, missions. So I can have something that's in my deployment zone, but still can threaten the board, and especially if my opponent has some chaff. Now they're not going to kill any like Custodes, really tough things, but they're going to go really great into anything Eldar, Orc, uh, things that are normal bodied, even Marines really. You can put a ton of shots in, your 10-man squad, your 3 shots is 30 shots, and then you have rapid fire in your back pocket that you can put a ton more shots into them and potentially wipe out a unit with those guys. With the grenade launchers, you do have the option to do some downrange multi-damage shots, plink things. Hey, maybe you got a monster that's on a couple wounds left. Just fire a couple of grenade launch shots at it, and maybe you can take it down. Crusher Stampede is still a thing. They kind of got a little bit indirectly nerfed with some of the new missions, but they're still out there. So an extra a couple shots at D3 damage is nothing to sniff at for 10 points, I think. And then you have some guns out there to really impact the game. And then, like I mentioned, those Crusader squads are going to be advancing up the board and doing what they do. Now, the troops are going to be part of that secondary wave. My first wave is going to be my close combat units. So you may not have noticed, but there was a top finishing Black Templars. Went 4-1 at a GT this past weekend, and they actually used Primaris Sword Brethren. So imagine that. So we've been talking about they having a role. So I'm actually going to be using the Primaris Sword Brethren squad as kind of a stand-in for my Vanguard veteran. Yes, they're not as fast, but the list is built around having auras and ensuring that as many things as possible are going to be in Helbrix and Grimaldus's bubble, as well as having the Primaris chaplain giving some litany bonuses here. Now, what you probably have seen in our previous video about the Blade Guard and the Sword Brethren, you will notice that the damage potential on the Sword Brethren is pretty high. So you don't have to necessarily worry about Crusher Stampede. You have some tools to deal with those, tools to deal with the Custodes, and certainly pretty much everything else out there. This one is going to be our 2 Thunder Hammers, 2 pairs of Lightning Claws, Power Swords across the board. You're going to have one of those Power Sword guys is going to be running the Sword of Judgment with the Champion of the Feast to give just additional damage 3.
Full Gucci.
Yep, full Gucci. So you could split them if you wanted to, but I probably would keep them in the full man squad against the more elite unit armies out there, especially like a Custodes, Tau. You could maybe do some splits on them and the intercessor squads to give you some more units against a more trade based army like Sisters of Battle or the Eldari, possibly even your Harlequins, because they like trading. So that might be something that you can split them up and have some more board presence on there. And then to fill up the rest of my elite choices, I have 2 units of Vanguard veterans. So as I mentioned, they in those previous videos, they are meant to hold the objectives. So they're going to go get them and they're going to hold them, and then they're going to wait for my crusader squads to pull up into the middle of the board, and then they're going to advance them again and hopefully hold some more board. So between the Primaris and the Primaris Sword Brethren and the Blade Guard veterans, you're going to have a reasonably decent, close combat force with backup in your crusader squads, and you should have plenty of close combat ability. But as we all know, we need some guns, right? So I talked about the Redemptors not being in the list, but you do have to have some source of plasma to be able to deal with damage to things. So that's going to be in my Hellblasters. So Hellblasters are an economical Inceptor squad. They're not going to be as fast, again, so we are sacrificing speed and top end ceiling damage on the plasma. But for 165 points, a reliable 3 shots per model for 15 per turn, I can't complain about it. You can make them faster. So if you want to make them faster, you can. They're great Emperor's Will target with your stratagem there. Get them in the center of the board in target, and you're going to be pumping a ton of shots into Custodes, Tau. Yes, they have a bunch of their stupid little servitor things. I forget the name of them right off the top of my head.
Shield
Shield
drones.
drones.
Hmm.
But you're going to be able to eat through a ton of those things with these shots or incidental damage on some necessary troops. So they can do some damage.
Yep.
Grey Knights, they love shooting into Grey Knights. Anything Marine, they
Yep.
will take their chunk out. Not going to have the high damage potential of the Redemptors, but as talked about, their bodies, so they can hold up to the shots more effectively. And then finally, we have the Eradicator squad here. So they're going to be all heavy Melta to get the D6 plus 2. And then obviously in Melta range, you get the D6 plus 4. So it's going to be a 5-man. So it's not going to be combat squattable. But with that being said, they're going to be a great use of Helbrecht as a reroll to ensure that they're going to be getting some shots in and killing whatever they're shooting. They're going to be really, really important. So you want to make sure when you're deploying, you're getting both them and the Hellblasters in the Aurelian Shroud range, as well as Grimaldus, so that they can tank a few more shots if necessary. I would have loved to get the Crux on these guys to ensure that they stay a little bit around a little bit longer, but unfortunately the points were not there for that. So ideally, what you're going to be doing, as mentioned, you're going to have a nice big blob right in the center of the board. The great thing about the Sword Brethren is they don't need to be right there. You can string them out a little bit and hide them because they do not have the downsides of our vows, right? So they can hide. They will get cover saves. They will get intervening -1 to hits if there's dents. So make sure that you don't forget about that. So deploy them and centrally and spread out as necessary. You'll have 2 waves. You can spread across the board if necessary, splitting up in combat squatting if you need to with the intercessors, or if you're playing an elite versus an elite game, you have some very durable bodies on the board that really are kind of tough for your opponent to deal with. Honestly, when you got 10-man squads running across the board coming right at you, even with a ton of shots and rerolls and flamers and things of that nature, and airbursts and indirect, that's still a ton of bodies you really kind of have to burn through. So that's what I came up with our Black Tide theme. I think that's probably as competitive as we're probably going to be able to get it with the mass bodies. Yeah, there is some more shooting that you could probably fit in there in exchange for like the Blade Guard veterans, but then you'd basically be running just Tom's list, and I'm not going to just repeat the list on YouTube because you can find that elsewhere. So I wanted to make it a little bit different. So
Yeah. So I actually really like this list too. I like that, Grimaldus, as you said, we're going to have a little extra psychic defense. He gets both his denies at +1, which is great, and very helpful. Um, the the intercessor squad is certainly uh, a little bit maybe surprising for some folks, but clearing chaff, they're very going to be very good at that, and they're actually something that's really good to shoot into crisis suits because you're going to force your opponent to either take wounds on a crisis suit or take wounds on the shield drones. And if you can plink off some shield drones, so when something harder shoots into them, they're going to have less bodies to tank wounds on, for that. And then, as you mentioned, both them and the Sword Brethren could combat squad if need be, to cover, maybe a really spread out board or whatnot. You've got some flexibility with that, which is nice. The other thing that I like is the two Crusader squads. Honestly, they're probably going to march up the board relatively untouched. You mentioned that, obviously they don't have the extra bodies that Tom's list had, but Tom's list also, they were his primary melee force. And here they are not necessarily, right? There are other big threats, big melee threats that are coming up the board. They're probably not going to get shot a lot in favor of targeting Blade Guard, Sword Brethren, even the Eradicators or Hellblasters, right? It really, um, really decent chance that they're going to hit something intact with 40 or 50 attacks, and you know, uh, again, it's another one of those drown them in wounds, right?
yeah,
Might Gene Rot might, if I could speak correctly, really helps with that, especially if you can get full rerolls, um, which would be great. It was funny because when you first sent me this list, you're like, "What about this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I like this. I like these units, yeah." And then I got to the end. I'm like, "Wait a minute, where are the Redemptors?" Um, and I was like, "All right, well, I mean, this is basically like as black tide as we can get, which is cool. Because you got to have we can't go just full bodies, right? You got to have some shooting. You got to have some elite stuff that's more deadly. Um, and the Sword Brethren are going to be great for that. The Blade Guard are going to be holding down objectives while the Sword Brethren move up and kill stuff. Um, they throw out a metric ton of attacks as well, and you know, Strength 5 is uh, still a pretty great breakpoint, but with Helbricht, those power swords are going to be Strength 6, which is actually more important now than it used to be because you've got all those crisis suits are all tough 5, all the custodies are all tough 5, so it's going to let you wound them on 3s instead of 4s, which is pretty significant.
yeah,
Um, and of course the lightning claws in that squad will wound on 4s instead of 5s, which helps them a lot as well.
yeah. And it
Um,
gives you a way to deal with those Virtus Praetors as well, which are tough 6.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there you're going to be
So
hitting on 4s.
exactly, exactly. So, the Eradicators are great. I'm really becoming more of a fan of the heavy meltas. I want to, get that extra, got to get the extra couple points of damage just to ensure more consistency. I think it's worth it even if you're hitting on 4s, especially with a 5-man squad. You're got 10 shots. That's a good chunk of Melta. That's D6 plus 2. If you have Helbrick's full rerolls, that's going to be 75% chance to hit. So really good with that. for them to take down big monsters and um, larger, more durable units, like those bikes or crisis suits or broadsides. Broadsides have 8 wounds. So, yeah, so definitely being able to do that, and they're going to be hanging with Helbrecht, and don't forget, ferocity. It's only 12-inch range, but ferocity is always D6 plus 2. There's no melter range. It's just in melter range
Yeah.
all day long. So, which is really nice. And his bolter is nothing to sniff at either. It's strength 5 as well. Um, so, and then of course, I've always been a fan of the Hellblasters over Inceptors. Not only are the models way cooler, but I think mathematically they're a better deal as far as the value you get from the points that you spend. We actually did a video on that, which you can see here. So check that out. It's a little older, but the math is still relevant because the points haven't changed since we did that video. So check that out if you're interested in Hellblasters versus um, Inceptors. But overall, great list. I think it'd be a lot of fun to run this. Plunk down 60 bodies on the board and be like, I'm orcs now. So, all right, have fun killing me with your D3 plus 3 weapons. Who cares? You killed a neophyte. Good job.
Yep.
So I think it would be fun to run, even if it's not, necessarily like a top tournament list or a list you take to like LVO or something like that.
Yeah.
Certainly be fun to run, even in local tournaments. I think it'd do fine. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this list. Let us know what you think of our choices with this. What success are you having with an all Primaris list, or what maybe things have you struggled with if you're running all Primaris? Um, also check out our Discord. We have a really fantastic Discord with a lot of great folks in it, talking Templars, all things Black Templar, whether it's strategies or lore or hobby. A lot of great stuff there. And we have a Patreon as well. We really appreciate all the support that our Patreons give to us. So if you're interested in that and the benefits that come with that, please check out the link in our description. And until next time, keep on crusading.